because of the animation, the art was really low budget on Clannad the movie. I had never felt more insulted just watching an anime.
The first third was a decent film, the second third was a mediocre sequel, the last third was a finale so horrible it makes you hate the first two parts. It's Unbreakable, Split, and Glass in one movie.
Just not a lot happens in it. You know, it wasn't very memorable as much as the anime was. It was just kind of movie to pass the time, I guess. I have no really idea why they made it, but it was a movie.
Probably easier to watch a 90-minute movie instead of 48 episodes of a show. You can't fit all that into a 90-minute movie. The movie sucks.
Comparing Clannad the movie and Clannad the series is really hard. It's almost like trying to compare ramen to a cup of noodles.
Clannad, these fucking nuts. Fuck Clannad.
Clannad is a very important series to so many people. It has a reputation of being an anime that makes even the iciest of hearts melt, the toughest of men cry. Well, people say that about After Story at least, but in my opinion, After Story is only as effective as it is because of the original series. Not to mention the visual novel, which is what both series are adapting, and is the definitive version of the story of Clannad. But being one of the longest visual novels ever created, a lot of people opt to instead watch the anime adaptation. Clannad has a very distinct art style, which was masterfully animated by Kyoto Animation when adapting the visual novel into an anime. The main female cast all have these huge, downturned, far-apart eyes and tiny mouths, which you may think dampen the ability for them to emote well, but that's not the case at all. The Clannad anime is visually beautiful, the art direction staying true to the original creator's vision, while also bringing the characters to life. It's no wonder the anime garnered such a huge fan base even outside of the fans of the original visual novel. The major success of Clannad in both Japan and the West is a testament to how truly impactful its story is. It's a story that really speaks to the human experience, family, love, and loss. Each major character is tragic yet relatable in their own way, and gets carefully developed throughout the duration of the story. Watching these characters slowly evolve is so gratifying, and also completely pulls you into the world that Clannad creates, making them feel like real people. I could go on and on about how beautiful and touching the story is. I could spoil everything, I could pick it apart, I could analyze the dream and the play, I could talk about the complexities of Tomoya's character, the relationship with his father. There really is so much to think about with the series. But I'm not here to discuss any of that today, as interesting as it may be. No, I'm here today to present you with something entirely different. More like a mystery. Why does Clannad, the motion picture, exist? Clannad, the motion picture, is a film based on the insanely popular visual novel by the same name, produced by Studio Key. It follows Nagisa's route in the original game, as well as the ending you get if you follow Nagisa's route fully. It was released in 2007 in Japan, only to be critically panned by most audiences. The Clannad movie is weird. It's pretty much worse than the anime series in every single possible way. I mean, it's a fool's errand trying to fit all of Nagisa's route in Clannad and After Story into a single 90-minute film. No doubt it would lack the same feelings as the anime, much less the visual novel. It adds a lot of unnecessary and frankly insane changes to the story that, at best, don't really fit, and at worst, actively damage the story that is attempting to be told. I don't want this video to be a deep dive into the movie, because the movie itself doesn't really matter to me. Sure, there's the scarecrow and the bike. The way that Toei handled the art and animation leaves a lot to be desired. How Nagisa's one-man play is handled ends up being very confusing and strange. They have to rush through pretty much every major plot point in order to fit even the most bare bones of the story in, don't get me wrong, it isn't just stuck-up so-called film critic YouTubers like me who hate the movie. I looked at all sorts of reviews from English and Japanese speakers. The intro alone is a bunch of volunteers who dislike the movie enough to send in a clip. I even found a Japanese Yahoo Answers form about the movie, where someone says, "The movie version of Clannad is a stain on the franchise. We should pretend it never happened." I also remember when researching this around a year ago, I saw a Japanese fan on a similar forum say they walked out of the theater when seeing the movie. I can't seem to find it now though, but trust me, it exists. Basically, no matter where you look, the movie's being shit on. It's just not a very interesting film, and having to live up to the emotional story in the original visual novel just makes it look 10 times worse. Now, you may be thinking, why would they make this movie after the anime series perfected everything? That is an excellent question, the same question I had after watching the movie myself. Why would Key, or more specifically Jun Maeda, co-founder of Key and creator of Clannad, allow this movie to be made? Clannad, the motion picture, released on September 15th, 2007. The first episode of the Clannad anime released October 4th, 2007. Clannad, the motion picture, was the very first adaptation of the original visual novel to be released, by a little less than a month. When I first learned that the movie version of Clannad preceded the anime, I was completely shocked. A billion questions flooded my mind. Were the two studios in contact at all? They must have been working on both at the same time. How did that work? Why did Key decide to give two different studios a movie and an anime series respectively? Why did the movie release before the anime in the first place? I needed to know about the production of the Clannad movie. I had to know who, what, why, and how. It was imperative that this mystery be solved, although it wasn't going to be easy. There just isn't much information about the Clannad movie online, and most of the information I could find is all in Japanese. So we'll have to rely on a lot of Google Translate transcriptions of web pages. To supplement that, I also bought some Japanese pamphlets about the movie that I've scoured for useful information using a photo translating app. On that note, the first thing I discovered came from this website, Nico-Nicopedia. The first two lines of the article give us some useful information as to why Toei was made to handle Clannad the motion picture. Of course, this was translated using the Google Translate extension, so it won't be perfect, but throughout this we'll have to rely on it a lot. It reads, "The current final work in Toei's Key trilogy. It was planned because the previous movie, Air, had good results." Assuming this is true, we immediately have a new lead to go on. Taking a look at the Wikipedias, we can see that similar to Clannad, the Air anime was handled by Kyoto Animation while the movie was done by Toei. The major difference being that in Air's case, the anime premiered before the movie did, which to me seems more normal. Apparently, the Clannad movie was planned because the Air movie did well enough to warrant this kind of anime and movie airing nearly simultaneously phenomenon, which I have to wonder what the thought process drove such a release schedule. My guess is that the marketing team for Key wanted to keep up the hype for their IP, so they did that by releasing two products of that IP in near succession. By giving an anime series to Kyoto Animation, you were almost guaranteeing a top-of-the-line product, while when giving a movie to Toei, you can rest well knowing they'll do a passable job. I believe the core of the issue with Clannad, the motion picture, is obvious. The story is just not meant for a 90-minute runtime, no matter how you slice it. As one of the longest visual novels ever produced, the amount of thought and care put into each and every character is hard to understate. A movie trying to recreate the feelings and ideas that a 60 to 70 hour long visual novel inspires is, like I said before, a fool's errand. But that didn't stop them from trying. Using the Wayback Machine and searching through the official Key webpage, we find the exact day they announced the Clannad movie via their website. On April 1st, funnily enough, April Fool's Day, 2006, they wrote, "Production of the movie version of Clannad has been decided." This was a surprise to many fans of the game, some people even thinking it was an April Fool's prank. Around a year later, February 26th, 2007, Key announces a website for the Clannad movie. The official website for the movie Clannad opens on March 8th. Looking at the website, you need Flash to even view it, and when viewing it, there isn't much. basic introductions to the characters and their designs. It's cute, but it doesn't give us much information to go on. The last page from Key's website that is of any note comes from August 22nd of 2007, less than a month before the Clannad movie would come out. It says, "Details of the movie version of Clannad and TV anime version Clannad have released." This is noteworthy because Key is acknowledging both the movie and anime versions of Clannad in the same breath, both of which are slated to release the following month and month after. I find it interesting because while researching this, it was very, very difficult to find any mentions of both the anime and movie at the same time. It almost felt like they didn't know the other existed, or if they did, they didn't care. Sadly, I wasn't able to find much else. Sure, I found a few old websites talking about the movie, describing the basic plot, but it wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted substance. I wanted behind the scenes, what the director thought of the project, if he knew about the anime by Kyoto, if he was aware of how massive an undertaking an adaptation of Clannad would be. I wondered if perhaps he was not very passionate about the project, and that's why it ended up so lackluster. Maybe he didn't have the vision of the original creator. Part of me wanted to see him say things that completely missed the point of Clannad. It would be easier to understand what went wrong that way. There'd be someone to blame. Besides the short runtime being unfeasible, there would be a tangible person to scapegoat, to pin all the mistakes on. It would be a catchy title. It's his fault the Clannad movie sucks. Part of me wanted it to be that easy. All that being said, we've landed on the last bastion of information we have at our disposal. This booklet. A booklet containing director's commentaries, seiyuu interviews, as well as input from the artists who worked on the film. This booklet is the holy grail of information on the movie and is easily going to be the best source we look at today. Using Google Translate, me and my editor, KEROPHIBIAN, have painstakingly scanned each page. Although the translation is rough at points, usually the main idea is able to be deciphered. Of course, it would be better if we were able to get someone who knows Japanese to properly translate it, since there's no doubt a ton of nuance and valuable information being lost. However, let's do the best we can with what we have now. The first thing I'd like to point out is how nicely this pamphlet's put together. It's very appealing to flip through, with a good mix of art and text. I enjoyed going through it, even with the language barrier. I also appreciate the fact that this booklet was made in the first place. It shows a kind of love and appreciation for the film that's hard to actually recognize while watching the thing. Opening it up, the first page I'd like to discuss is the one titled Differences Between the Film and the Original Version of Clannad. This page addresses a few main differences, those being the contents of Tomiya and Nagisa's dream, the way Nagisa performs the play, the portrayal of Tomiya's father, and the bonds between the towns and the people. Strangely, these four elements that were changed were fundamentally important to the overall narrative of the original source material, so the decision to change them at all is confusing. The most important thing that was, quote, omitted from the film were the bonds between towns and people. This plot point is integral to Nagisa's character and is the cause of what ends up being the main struggle in the climax of the series. I understand why the director needed to omit it. They simply didn't have enough runtime, but it just goes to show that removing all of these important elements from a story in order to squeeze it into a movie always ends in something kind of crap. After this page, we get some interviews with the voice actors of the movie. I'm gonna skip over these as I couldn't find anything particularly noteworthy. I bet that if they were properly translated by someone who knows both Japanese and English, I'd be able to find a lot more useful information and nuance out of them, but as of now, I can't really sparse what they're trying to say in each paragraph. It gets kind of confusing with the Google Translate having these strange translations for some of the sentences. The VAs are asked questions about the story of Clannad depicted in the film, and what they think of the theme of family. The interesting parts begin with the director interview, that director being Osamu Dezaki. Saying Dezaki was an influential anime director would be a complete understatement. He was a pioneer in early Japanese TV anime, creating many techniques that have been built upon and used to this day. I wasn't familiar with Dezaki's influence before writing the script for this project, so I ended up watching this very informative video made by Anime Everyday called Anime's Greatest Visionary, Osamu Dezaki, where they go in depth on the successes of Dezaki's career, and especially one of Dezaki's most famous projects, Ashita no Joe.
It wasn't long until Dezaki was given the opportunity to direct his first full project, Ashita no Joe, in 1970. Joe was Dezaki's opportunity to make a name for himself and really make an impact on the medium. But what he did in these early years was more than anyone at the time could have imagined. He didn't stick closely to the already popular Joe manga as he adapted it, instead continuing on with his own vision of the series, which paid off as the series was a huge success, and at the young age of 27, Dezaki was becoming one of the biggest names in the industry.
The video proceeds to go over Dezaki's entire career from start to finish, outlining every innovation he made to the industry before his unfortunate passing in 2011, only a few years after the Clannad movie was released. He was truly a great visionary, and no doubt his impact on the animation industry will continue to live on forever. I highly recommend this video if you haven't seen Dezaki's older works, as it was very interesting to learn more about one of the founding fathers, so to speak, of the industry. Learning about all of Dezaki's experience and influence as a director really gave me a new perspective on this whole project. I just wanted to learn about the production of a semi-obscure anime movie that was panned. I thought for sure it was the fault of an amateur making their directorial debut. Come to find out, it was directed by a guy who practically helped build the Japanese animation industry from the ground up. Let's see what he has to say about creating Clannad, the motion picture. An interviewer asks, "How did you begin working on Clannad?" Dezaki responds, "I started by writing a script with Makoto Nakamura. I was also shown a video recording of the game, in which I realized it could be very difficult to adapt the material into a movie. At first, I questioned if it would be possible for viewers to enjoy the film as it was. I knew the movie would come out no matter what, so I did the best I could writing the script and trying to hone in on the charm of the work." It's very plain to see that Dezaki knew it would be a difficult task adapting Clannad into a film, and he certainly seemed to have put a lot of effort into a script based on his remarks here. So, writing Dezaki off as just being ambivalent to the story of Clannad, and that being the reason the film wasn't good, just isn't a very good angle to take here. Let's continue. The original game is a story about family and human connection. How did you feel about that? It's hard to put those feelings into words, but you can tell the characters are all very thoughtful towards their families and friends. In that sense, I thought that they were wonderful people. However, I wondered what I could do to properly express that. The dream Tomiya and Nagisa share is the most fantastical part of the story. It is the only fantasy element included in the story, but there are dreams that exist that you can have over and over again. Even if it's not concrete, there are street corners and landscapes that you can only see in your dreams. In fact, the dream Nagisa and Tomiya share in the film could be an expression of loneliness. Nagisa, who happened to meet Tomiya, had the same dream as him. I don't know if such coincidences can really happen. Everyone has a moment where they think they're special. They think they must be the only person who's unhappy. That's why Tomiya is surprised to learn that Nagisa had the same dream as him. He thought he was the only one, but Nagisa also experienced a dream of loneliness and pain, yet she acts so cheerful, happy, and kind. How hard could it be? Although the dream he describes from the film is a worse version than the original, I think his intentions were in the right place. I find this bit from the interview to be one of the more enlightening parts of Dezaki's character, showing he had his own interpretation of the source material and used it as a launchpad to write his own version of the story. Reading this section made me feel like Dezaki did have a proper vision of what he wanted the story of Clannad to be, even if the execution didn't pan out for audiences. His whimsical outlook on the nature of dreams reminded me so much of what makes Clannad special, not just the amazing drama and sadness during Afterstory, but the touch of supernatural elements that litter the series. Flipping through more and more of the pamphlet, it becomes obvious how the people involved in this movie's production really did care about Clannad. That fact makes it even sadder to consider how much the community dislikes the final product, me included. Clannad, the motion picture, is a strange phenomenon. The movie itself isn't a complete train wreck. The animation is serviceable, the art style is serviceable, the script is too. The issue is that the movie doesn't carry the same spark as the original series. The Clannad movie was weird, kind of bad, and didn't really need to exist. But it does, and that's okay. I don't think this movie was anyone's fault. It was a doomed production to begin with. The scope of the project too large to fit into a movie length. I pity every single person who poured their heart and soul into this movie, only for it to totally bomb and then later be forgotten to time. I'm glad I was able to discover Osamu Dezaki through this exploration, and I am looking forward to checking out The Rose of Versailles. It seems like a show I would like. May Dezaki rest in peace. You were truly one of the greats.